The next database that would be really helpful for people to have a look at is Sage Research Methods. A reminder of how you get to it. As usual, you can either get to it through recommended databases and type in what you're looking for. Or again, you can go to your Innovation on Entrepreneurship subject guide and you can find it under Study and Research Skills. So what is Sage Research Methods? It's a vast database of full text handbooks, videos, and case studies about quantitative and qualitative research methods. And how is it useful? You can use it to find examples of your chosen research methods, to find out how it works in practice with text and videos, and you go through browse for that. If you're not sure about which method to use, you can use the methods map for guidance as well, which is really, really helpful. You can use the research project planner with a step-by-step help on each stage of the research process. And this also includes a really good section on ethics in research. There are case studies that you can look up to see how your research methods are used in real life research. And finally, depending on what area you're interested in, you can practice qualitative and quantitative analysis on sample data sets. And each data set is packed with an explanation of the method that is being applied and a step-by-step guide to analysing the data.
And can I just butt in there? So again, in terms of the sense and the work you do with us, there's a broad range of approaches that we take and we expect you to write to. This provides you with this solid body of evidence to A, kind of justify what you're doing, but B, to learn from. It's incredibly rich. So we expect you to incorporate a lot of different methods in lots of different kind of contexts. So again, as opposed to maybe your core discipline where you get those a lot clearer and you can go more in depth, this allows you to kind of move across all these different approaches and justify why you're doing the things that you do in the work with us.
Absolutely. And I think I'm just have a screenshot of the actual database, which has very user-friendly, intuitive links to what you need, because there's a lot of material there. So for example, what I mentioned about methods coming alive, you can look up the video section. Practicing data analysis, you can look up these cleaned data sets, which have been cleaned especially for the database, and their government reports, their academic data sets, which have been given by academics. You can design your project. You can learn the difference between qualitative and quantitative techniques through these textbooks. And this podcast. So I'd strongly recommend going through the link, playing around. It's absolutely fascinating. It's really interesting.
Again, I mean, not that I would say this is a bad thing, but you're not just having to go into the stacks and pull out books and hope they've got them and maybe read something. You're like, oh, it's nearly right, but it's not quite. You've basically got access to the full Sage database. Sage is the name, right, in research methods. You know, it was before I'd ever seen any of this when I was a kind of a student. So yeah, again, use it.
Exactly. And also, it's worth bearing in mind that it's part of our digital library. So it has full textbooks, basically, but they're available digitally. So that saves you a lot of time, especially when you're working collaboratively.
And they've got lots of really good introductions, I found, when I was trying to learn this stuff on a PhD. Lots of like, oh, okay, that's what that means. Yeah.
In fact, Keir, that's a really good point, because if you look here, the little green books are the introductions. So you've got the little green books to qualitative methods. It's exactly what you've described. And we have for the qualitative methods, the little blue books. So it's exactly what you described. So it's starting from basic principles. Perfect. The other thing that's worth showing is that you can access through the research tools, you can access both the methods map, which I described, and the project planner, which is really, really helpful. So you can search under method maps for a research method you want to look up. And here's an example of that. What's really great is once you go to the left, I've picked one, for example, observation. You type in observation in the methods map, and it already describes observational research, observational studies, non-participant observation, etc. It's picking up on that term. And what's really nice about it is once you get to it, once you pick your method, the methods map will really help you to browse terms and content. And it's a visual representation of how methods, terms, and concepts are related to each other. And you'll find a short definition of your chosen research. So for observational research, it's got a very short thing on top with a short definition of the term. And you can also look at all the content by clicking on that. And what's really nice about it, you can also find, you can view narrower terms on the right-hand side, like structured observation, participation observation, or you can look at broader terms on the left, like research design or qualitative data. So, you know, any area that interests you, discourse analysis, survey, participatory research, if you do that search, it will give you a map, which would be really, really helpful.
And I just wanted to highlight something here. So we've looked at some of the other databases, the way you integrated them. And behind this, there is still those kind of Boolean operators. You can still do traditional search. But what they've decided to here is to use a different form of interface for the database, right, which is a visual one. That always has, you know, consequences. So some things are included, some things aren't. But for me, I love clicking through this. Like, frankly, like I don't love clicking through text and trying to get the operators right. I love going, what would be naturally occurring data? Let's dig into that. Okay, what would be a related term? No, I need a bit broader. I need just a general broad term. It's all of this thing is there's a big database of knowledge somewhere. And it's how we access it and how we filter it. And this, for me, I think there's something really, really good about Sage that makes this stuff accessible. Which makes sense when they're a company or an organization that deal with research methods and clarity. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that.
No, thank you, Keir. That's absolutely the point. It's very intuitive. I find it really easy to use. And I'm not an expert in a lot of these methods, so that's less of a barrier for me. The final thing I wanted to show you in Sage Research Methods, well, a couple of things actually. One of them is the project planner. So it can literally go through every step of the research you need along the way. And it actually shows you, I decided to go on research design, and it shows you as you're going along which point you're at. And it has really helpful, intuitive links to research design that you can click on and get more information. For example, what will you emphasize in your research, with which methods to use, who will benefit from my research. All these things are really helpful, including the wonderful section on research ethics, which I thought was really helpful. So again, have a little play with this. In 5 minutes, you can really have a little rip around the database and have a look. But
Sorry, just really quickly. So what was really nice here is as well is obviously there were a million different methods. Some oppose each other, some are completely contrasting, some are really aligned. What's nice about this is it's giving you a kind of generic overview of like, these are things you still need to think about researcher, whether you're a physicist or you're a fine art performance artist, right? There's still things you can consider and structure into your learning. Again, as a prompt, as a kind of way to start investigating. That's what all these tools are. They don't give you the answer, but they give you a way of doing and thinking about things, which is really beautifully designed in this case.
I think so, to be honest. The final thing I wanted to show, and again, this is something that's really helpful for your project work, your dissertations, the cases. I showed you earlier that there's a really simple link, you go through it, but what's wonderful about this is you can browse by method and by discipline, and it has science, hard science, medical science, social sciences, humanities, arts, it's all there for you. It even has a section on technology and communication, which I think would probably be quite useful for yourselves as well. So I would recommend having it.
Search questions. Sorry, I just think that's really cool. So, I mean, it's literally got a set of research questions you can start asking and start working from, because one of the things we do as academics is produce more questions. So we give those to other people to work from. Sorry, that just got me really excited. And again, if we think back to, was it Business Source Complete, and we think about case studies, we think about profiles, this is a different discipline, it's a slightly different context. But again, it's not just here is a paper about something. There are structures to these things. So I need to think about, how am I going to actually do this? Well, I'll probably go and look at case study as opposed to the kind of wider theoretical stuff. Again, though, as innovators at the center, being able to do it by discipline, to be able to do it by method and by type, right, as well. All of those things, man, I don't know. I just think, again, incredibly rich, but you need to learn how to access them like any other tool.
Exactly. I think that covers everything, the basics for sure, and everything that would be needed for Sage Research Methods.